How many of you have some Scottish background? You trace your ancestry back to Scotland. Very good. What do you think of when you think of the Scots? Yell it out. Tight, stingy, thrifty, frugal. Thank you. They always say the same thing. That is not a Scotsman's number one characteristic, however. A Scotsman's number one characteristic is indecision. A Scotsman can never make up his mind. That's the reason his favorite color is plaid. My great-great-grandfather came from Scotland many years ago. My great-great-grandfather was an old Indian fighter. Great-great-grandmother was an old Indian. Two guys in the beaches of Normandy were down in the foxhole. Fighting had been fierce. Bombs bursting everywhere, bullets flying through the air. Faintly in every direction through the fog, they could hear sounds like this. So that's a tip-off they weren't in South Arkansas right there. One guy turned to his buddy and said, I believe we're cut off behind enemy lines. We ain't like to get out. They said, won't you say a prayer? He said, man, I never belonged to an organized religious group. I'm a Methodist. He said, why don't you say a prayer? He said, I never belonged to anything. I mean, but I grew up next to this Catholic church. I mean, it was right next door, and you could hear their prayers over and over and over. But I guess I could say one of those Catholic prayers just from osmosis. He said, for gosh sakes, we're in a terrible spot. Say that Catholic prayer. He said, get on your knees. And they got down there in that foxhole, and he says, under B, 7, under I, 13. There's also a fallacy that says the English don't have a good sense of humor, and that's ridiculous. The English have a grand sense of humor. I was at the London Palladium a few years ago as a tourist in the audience. An English comedian was on stage, and he came down off the stage, and he said, you American chaps wear those expensive wristwatches, the kind that tell the date, the time, the barometric pressure, and the wind velocity when you're supposed to take your next pill or drink or whatever. I didn't seem to have very good luck with those expensive watches. Went to Geneva the other day, paid £189, 9 bob, 8 quid, 6 halfpenny for one of those expensive watches. Waterproof, magnetic proof, shock proof, just my luck. You know what happened? It caught fire.